Ryan here with Black Soulutions, and we have a very special guest today, the lovely Miss Ciera Payton.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah.
Good, good. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where you're from.
Ooh.
And all that.
All right. I mean, it gets a little deep at times, but you know, I grew up in New Orleans, so in the third ward of New Orleans, Calliope stuff. Anyway, I don't think nobody in here knows anything about that. But anyway, that's where I'm from. I grew up there. I did move around a bit as a kid prior to settling down in New Orleans. I lived in Mississippi for a little while with my grandma. Also lived in Texas for a little bit. But I settled down in New Orleans about 6 or 7 years old, and I lived with my dad. And you know, my childhood upbringing was, you know, I had some normal things and some not so normal things. I mean, definitely had some amazing moments, cultural moments, as far as, you know, going to school in the French Quarter, seeing drunk people on my way to school, naked people, you know, and then my Nana and I, we'd pick up my dad after work and, you know, would pass by open door strip clubs and, you know, like all that type of crazy stuff. But also, you know, getting to go and sit out on the levee and have ice cream and, you know, watch the sunsets and, you know, listen to the local street musicians and stuff, just those type of things. But, you know, my upbringing, it did have some, you know, lots of dysfunction, lots of abnormal things. My father struggled a lot with substance abuse, so did some other family members of mine that lived in our home. And I was subjected to that, you know, all throughout my young upbringing. And I think it just really shaped me in a sense to just kind of stay on the straight path. It definitely matured me really quickly as a young kid, because I was tuning into and again, just seeing things that just weren't normal to a normal kid. And it definitely just gave me a fuel and a passion to explore the arts and to kind of find my voice in different and non-conventional ways. And so, you know, I had a very unique childhood experience, you know, that I don't take for granted, that I would never wish anything differently. It was multicultural. My father's biracial, so it was me living with him and my white grandmother and my 2 white aunts, and we had a small little apartment in the third ward, and, you know, kind of like the only mixed family like in that area. We lived next door to this place called the Bridge House, which was a halfway home for people that were coming out of prison and also homeless people. And so, you know, on any given day, my Nana would be out in the front yard, like watering plants, and these guys would be passing by, and she'd stop what she was doing and go make them sandwiches and make me like go give them to them. So, you know, it was just different, you know, and I would go spend the summers in Pickey, Mississippi with my grandmother on my mama's side, and, you know, and get all that country goodness of, you know, and the most best food I ever had in my life was the food that my grandma made in Mississippi. And, you know, I was able to learn from her and learn a lot of, you know, different recipes. But, you know, that part of Mississippi was very racist, you know, so the blacks lived on one side of the town and the whites lived on the other side of town. So, you know, for me as well, like, that was a little confusing too, because, you know, I was living with white people in the city and then coming to like this South and being on that side of town, and, you know, basically being like they don't mix and mingle, like, you know. So it was just, you know, I got a whole just wide world experience as a young person, and it was definitely challenging at times, definitely hard to handle at times, especially dealing with you know, seeing my dad and my aunts struggle with their drug addictions, and it cost us a lot. You know, we've been evicted a couple times, and my dad was in and out of prison, and so so that stuff was hard for me as a kid, but it shaped me, you know.
Now, you were down in New Orleans like around when Hurricane Katrina was hitting.
Yeah.
So tell us about, you know, having to move out and that whole transition?
Yeah, of course, Katrina was a very unexpected, the rest of the country's like, well, y'all know that y'all live in a bowl. But, when I was in middle school too, we always talked about New Orleans not being existing anymore come 2050. But it was just one of those things where, we were so used to having hurricanes and rebuilding. And so during that time, the 2 or 3 months prior to Katrina happening, we had the big threat of this other hurricane called Hurricane Ivan. And everybody, all the news stations were like, this is the big one that's gonna hit, like everybody evacuate, blah, 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 blah. And I'm totally into conspiracy theories, so I feel like it was let's test this out to see how many black folks don't leave the city.
Crazy.
And they tested it, and I think a lot of black people did leave. However, what that caused was, when Katrina happened, people were like, oh, well, Hurricane Ivan ain't do nothing, so, we should be good to go. So, yeah, it was completely unexpected. By this time in my life, I was living with my mom, and we lived in the upper 9th Ward, which is also considered New Orleans East. And so, my mom, she was already out of town, and I was home by myself, and my friends and I were planning on having a hurricane party, trying to be grown. And then, the night prior to, Hurricane Katrina hit Monday morning or Monday afternoon, and my next door neighbor was the one that convinced me to evacuate. And I'm so thankful to God that she did, because if she didn't do that, I would have been swimming in the water, So we evacuated to Baton Rouge, which had all kinds of damage and everything that happened there. And I know that you wanted to know about my move from New Orleans after Katrina, so I'm not going to get too much into the story. I don't know if y'all want to hear all of it, because it was I don't know, Armageddon or whatever. It was nuts. I evacuated. I stayed with my friend. She was going to school at LSU, and we were in her, I guess, campus apartment with her roommate's boyfriend. My friend, her mother, we had another friend that came to stay with us, and his girlfriend. It was I think at a given time it was almost 10 of us, in this little campus apartment thing. And people just kept coming in, sometimes her cousins were coming in, and we were out without electricity for a good about 5 days. Wow. And completely just in the dark, figuratively and literally, on what was going on. So it was just kind of crazy. My mother had evacuated during that. I'll go back. It was crazy, but my mother, she had already left prior to that, because she had a trip already planned. So she had my little 5-year-old brother with her. Right. And so during all this time, I have no idea what's going on. I just know I'm in Baton Rouge. I know my mother was in Mississippi. And where I'm at, we just didn't have electricity. There was so much chaos, convenience stores, 7-Eleven. Everybody was just freaking out. Yeah. And so once we got power back, I was able to get on the internet and to see all the devastation that was going on. And I knew where my mom was and where my little brother was, and I knew that they had gotten hit really hard. And so immediately my mind is are they even alive? Yeah. Because none of the phones were working. Landlines were down, no cell phone communication, so I couldn't get in touch with anybody. So I heard that at the Tiger Stadium that they were taking in evacuees from the Gulf Coast, and we're seeking volunteers to come and help. And so I was in the back of my mind, I was okay, that's where I could go and check in with Red Cross and with FEMA to see if I could find my mom and my little brother. And so I went. And, it was crazy because I got there and everything was just so unorganized. And literally people were coming in, and they got you could tell that they were maying in the water. So their pants and shirts were all messed up, and they were old people, just it was crazy. And they were taking in medical students and just regular volunteers. There's these lines, And they were just like, you know, all medical students over here, you know, because we could use you in the medical ward.
Yeah.
And all other volunteers, like, go over there to help, you know, pick up trash or whatever. And somebody who was taking in the students assumed that I was a medical student. And so she was like, you come here. And I was like, sure. She was like, medical? And I was like, yeah. You know, like, and in my mind, I was like, I'm just trying to get as close to whatever authority I can, because I got a 5-year-old brother and a mother that's missing, and I don't know how to get in touch with them. And so, yeah, hits me sometimes. Woo.
No.
So, you know, then they like brought me into this doctor, and he was like, hey, we got all these elderly people coming in, and they're like, you know, like on their last leg, so you being a medical student, just make sure that they go peacefully. And I was like, yo, and there was a room about like this small, and there was 3 elderly women up in there, and then he was just like, just let me know if anything happens. And like, I was there for like 12 hours, maybe even longer. And like, as people were passing by in the hallways, I literally was like, hey, like, I'm trying to get in touch with somebody from the Red Cross or whatever. And at one point they did bring somebody over, and I was like, look, I'm registering my name. Like, do you have a Deborah? Do you have a Jalen? Like, you know, let me know. And so they just kept being like, no, we haven't got any information yet. So midway through all of that, one of the elderly women just starts like not being able to breathe. And so I call in the doctor. This is where it gets crazy. You know, the doctor was like, well, we need to perform a tracheotomy because she can't breathe. And I'm like, what? Like, you know, I was like, and he walked me through on how to do it, and we did it, and like kept this woman sustaining. So like I say, like, it literally, when you watch all those apocalyptic movies, and like when the world is in complete utter chaos and people don't know what to do, like, that's what was going on. And I was just like, I'm gonna be a G about it. Like, I was just like, I ain't no time to be sitting here crying, nothing like that. Like, I'm just gonna, like, this woman can't breathe, he's telling me how to do a tracheotomy, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm gonna try it for my mom, I'm gonna try it for my brother, like, we just gonna keep it moving. And so I was there, and it was literally, it took my friend to be like, Ciera, you know, like, you need to leave, because like, you know, like, it's time to go. Like, come on, let's get out of here. You could go and like find your mother some other kind of way or whatever, you know. And she was like, you need to come home and eat. And I was like, okay. So I went back to her apartment, and then I got an email from my school that was like, we see everything that's going on in the news. Let us give you some money to get you back to North Carolina, because I was already registered for school. Okay. And so I was like, all right, you know. And so I got my car, and I drove to North Carolina with the money that they put in my bank account, got gas, and on my way to driving to North Carolina, all of a sudden my cell phone started working when I had got to Mississippi. And it was like, okay, well, let me call my mom. Like, I was like, the first person I'm gonna call is my mom. And so I tried calling her cell phone, I couldn't get in touch with her. Tried calling my stepdad's cell phone, couldn't get in touch with him. And then I called my grandma's house in Mississippi, and my mama answered the phone. And so, you know, it was like, it's just crazy. And during all this time, my grandmother, my mother's mom, she got really sick, you know, and because they were without electricity, and she was diabetic and had cancer, and all of her medicine wasn't kept cold, and so she passed away like a couple weeks after that. And it was just a crazy time. And so I just, you know, I was already in school in North Carolina, and, you know, I was just shell-shocked, you know, for lack of a better term. And the instructors there, they were really accommodating and understanding. And, you know, some people out there were able to get my mom and my little brother to move to North Carolina because we had lost our home. My grandmother had passed away. So, and that's what we did. We just basically, none of it was planned, you know. We just kind of went with the flow on all of it. It was just like, okay, like, what else is there? You know, like right now, we don't know if New Orleans is going to be rebuilt, what's going to happen. You know, my little brother's school had gotten underwater, and so we were just like, okay, let's set up shop in North Carolina. So that's how that ended up happening. And yeah, so we settled there. I finished out college there. My mom still lives there with my little brother, and you know, so that's how that happened.
Wow. Wow, that is crazy. So how did you get into acting now? If we can circle back, and then what was studying in North Carolina like?
For me, acting, like I said earlier, it was just, it came out of the need of just needing to have a voice. My survival instincts kicked in. You know, I wanted to just kind of create an alternate reality other than the one that I was faced with. And I just think I always had like an artistic vibe about myself as a kid. I was always painting and drawing, and I was really into Barbies, and so I was always like setting up scenes in the dollhouse, and like, and it was like weird because I wouldn't want anybody to touch them. Like I just set it up like they were like, you know, and I'd have to explain to my dad like, she's cooking dinner right now. This is, you know, we're gonna just keep it right here, you know. And I used to take pictures of them, you know, and it was just like, you know, it was just, I don't know. I mean, and it just came. My imagination was like my escape, you know, and I'd started writing little stories and performing them, you know, for my nana, and just, I remember they got me a karaoke machine one Christmas, and I think that was like one of their biggest regrets, because like I was like not get off of that thing at all. I thought I was every Disney princess out there in the world.
Okay.
And so yeah, and so, you know, at 12, I think it just really, really hit me. I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and just saw how that woman was able to use her background and her upbringing and some of her struggle and just channel it into a healthy alternative by being creative and being a writer and being a poet. And I just knew that acting spoke to me. And so I just kind of followed it. I just followed that curiosity. And at school, I joined a little drama club, and then got to do a Greek play at school where I played a Greek goddess. And then somebody was like, you should audition for this other school. You should audition for the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. And so I did. And it was an intense curriculum where, you know, it was all arts-based. And so I spent half the day at that school and then half the other day at my regular academic school, and just studied acting and got an early taste of what that was like. And then ended up going to North Carolina School of the Arts, because I graduated as a junior from NOCA, and then had to find something to do for my senior year. So North Carolina School of the Arts had a senior year program, so I went there, and then ended up staying there for college. And the training there was very similar to NOCA. It was just more intense. We looked at the classics, Shakespeare, George Bernard Shaw. They didn't have no black classics, which I was always like, yo, like, what's up with that? I was the only black girl in my class. You know, and really like the only one of my kind that they had ever, you know, experienced, because, you know, from where I come from, and, you know, all that type of stuff. So I was constantly kind of butting heads with some of the professors and everything, because I did feel like that the curriculum and the higher ups were just very out of touch on what students of color needed. And it was funny because like, and then I got the nickname Angela Davis, and like, or Senator Payton when I was in college. And and it, you know, and I took it extreme at times, because I was just like, you know, at times I felt like, yeah, it's unfair that a lot of my people don't have access to these type of programs because it's really expensive. And then when they do have access to it, how are you serving them? How are you catering to them? Because I didn't know about August Wilson or really any playwrights until my senior year of college. And that was only because they directed an August Wilson play that I was in. But all throughout, like, you know, I didn't know anything about black actors and, you know, black playwrights and black screenwriters or black producers, or like, and not to say that was like the end all be all, like, oh, I only needed that for my training, but it was just like I was getting exposed to all these other, you know, white playwrights and stuff like that I did find my voice in a lot of those, you know, plays and stories as well. But I also wanted to have something that brought it back home, so I can have a reference point to start from. You know, and I didn't realize how important that was until I did discover August Wilson's work, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what it's like to feel like you have a story to tell, but not having, you know, the access to it.
Yeah.
That you feel like you need. So no, I totally understand. But you've ended up working with a lot of amazing, talented people. Do you have any cool stories to share with us? Perhaps working with Tyler Perry.
Yeah. I mean, all the people that I work with, and even if, you know, if there have been some unpleasant experiences, I love just watching them and like how they move and how they work. And I would say Tyler Perry really was one of the most amazing experiences that I ever had, you know. And number one, like, you know, I don't think people give him enough credit. You know, I mean, he's the only black man that has his own film studio. And nobody really gives him that credit or even like realizes that, you know. And you know, people want to criticize the content or whatever, and I'm like, put all of that aside. Like, look at the barriers he's breaking. All of his employees, I mean, are well taken care of, you know, and he's the type of guy that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're the janitor or the CEO, like, he shakes your hand, he talks to you, you know, he makes everybody feel special and important. He starts off every single morning with the whole cast and crew with doing a prayer, and it's a prayer of gratitude. Never in my life have I ever seen anything like that on set. And so it's just like, you know, I've been on sets where things are tense or like disconnected, and even if it's tense, it's whatever, like that's whatever that is. But, you know, with Tyler Perry, it was just like, you know, yeah, like maybe there were times where people were tired or whatever, but for the most part, everybody's just getting along, having a wonderful time, you know, so grateful to like be there, you know, and he never once like let you forget that he appreciated you, you know, and I just saw that from all the different tiers of, you know, the different positions and stuff, and even when it came to the actors, and it's like, you know, sometimes as actors, you know, we are just kind of like props, you know, and you just kind of go in and you just do your job and then you leave set. But like with him, he made it known that he appreciated us and what we were doing. And so, and it was just one of those experiences that came at the right time in my life working with him. I mean, I literally was on my way to get food stamps because I only had $246 in my bank account. And then I found out that I booked this movie. And 2 days later, I was on a plane, a first class flight to Atlanta, you know? And so, you know, spiritually, religiously and everything, like I said, that's nothing but God, you know, like looking out for me and then putting me with somebody like Tyler Perry, who is, you know, a man of faith and who prays and talks about gratitude and appreciation, you know, before getting his crew together to film, you know, a 12 to 15 hour day, you know? So very unconventional, non-conventional methods, and it was funny because I did that movie, and then a couple weeks later, I'm on the set of Ballers back in LA, and a completely different vibe, you know? It's like, I'm like, hi, how you doing? And like, people like, what? She said, hi, you know? And I was like, oh, this ain't Tyler Perry land. Like, you know, I can't be like, you know. So, but if there's anybody that I feel like I've learned immensely from, just from watching, you know, I didn't even have to talk to him, but just from watching him, I'd say it had to be Tyler Perry. And, you know, I'd like to, you know, the direction in what I want to go in my life, I'd like to have that type of just awareness and knowledge that he has, so whoever's around me can just feel appreciated and you know, and know that I'm grateful for what they're bringing to my vision, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good segue into this next question, which, who are some of your acting inspirations and biggest influences, or non-acting?
Yeah.
They can be.
You know, I feel like it constantly changes for me because I'm seeking out, when I watch actors now, like there's certain things I'm kind of seeking out in them, but I mean, like I said, Maya Angelou has just always been one of my biggest influences and inspiration, like throughout my whole, you know, creative expression of life, I guess, you know.
Right.
And I like different actors for different things too. Like I love Wendell Pierce because I love how he is just able to go from film to, you know, TV, and then just like knock you off your feet with the Broadway play.
Yeah.
I think he's just so cool with that. And I do love Kerry Washington because, you know, she rocks it out on Scandal, you know, and that type of,
I understand, yeah.
you know, legal jargon and to say it fast and stuff like that. Like you got to be like one smart cookie to just like kind of get in and do that and then make it look fierce and flawless. And I love Denzel Washington. I love Gina Torres. I love Rosario Dawson. I love Angelina Jolie. Like I just think she's like amazing. But for the most part, like I love actors who you could tell that are just like they're having fun.
Yeah.
You know, because some of them are so scared, like of the big totality of this is a couple $1 million, you know, that are on my shoulders, and I gotta go in and do this and blah 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 blah. And you could see like the rigidness and the fear, you know, in some of them. So it's like when I can turn on my TV or go to movie theater and see an actor like really having fun. You know, and I'm not saying like they get in there and they're all jokey and stuff, but it's like, even if it's a drama, it's like, you know, like you can see the joy behind them, like playing a character and being in a scene. And so, and that's why, like, you know, the people I listed, and, you know, Will Smith is one of them too. Like, you know, he just knows how to have a good time, you know, when he's acting. Yeah. And so that, I just think that's important, and that's what I strive to be like, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, now tell us about your one-woman show. Michael's Daughter.
My one-woman show.
What were your inspirations behind that, and how did that start? And then, how did that lead you to create Michael's Daughter project?
Okay, like as I mentioned, my father had been in and out of prison a lot throughout my life, and his first real long-term sentence was when I was 14, and then later again when I was about 22. And so I moved out here when I was 24 or something like that. And, you know, it was just a really lonely time for me. I mean, I was in LA, I was in a new city, I, you know, didn't have any money, just kind of like slumming it, just trying to figure out like what to do, where to go. I slept on a couple friends' couches for a while and finally like was able to get my own apartment. And I just remember like literally only having an air mattress and like, you know, some dishes, but I had like the box of letters from my dad. And, you know, just a voice kind of spoke to me to open the letters and start reading them. And from those letters, I, you know, was empowered, inspired. I had a lot of empathy for my dad and, you know, what he was saying in the letters. And so I just felt like it was some kind of gold that was given to me that I needed to do something with. And at first it was a very selfish venture because I was just looking for a way to just kind of vent and get a lot of stuff off of my chest, and, you know, but then I also wanted to like share my dad's story as well. And so I just started exploring and just writing, and eventually, you know, it became this like one-woman show because I know my dad so well that I was like, I can't really have anybody else play him because, you know, he has these quirks, and he, you know, also stutters, and he has like a, you know, disabled left hand, like, and all these like different things. And so I'm like, I have to, you know, honor him by, you know, playing him. And so I wrote it, and I just started getting curious again, like, what festival can I put this in? How can I put this up? And then I ended up self-funding it, and people were really encouraging me to just keep going with it, and I did. And one of the big takeaways from it was the people that would come up to me after the play, and they came from all walks of life, you know, Asian, Latino, black, white, like everything, like, and being like, you know, my brother's in prison, my dad's in prison, you know, and even the guy that I had hired to do the lighting for my show, this white guy, who was just really unassuming, you know, and at the end of my performance, he told me, I don't want you to pay me, and I was like, why? And he was like, because you just inspired me to go visit my mom. And I was like, oh, what, where at? You know, and he was like, she's in prison. And I was like, what? So he was like telling me this story, how he didn't forgive her, and, you know, like my story like inspired him to forgive her. And I was like, okay, there's something there with this. So after that, yeah, I just, I was like, okay, these people come up to me, telling me that this is their story. I still do this work with these young people. Like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it was just like, oh, why don't you just create your own program where you're, you know, working with young people that have these similar experiences as you. And so, you know, I did, and I started looking up funds to do that, and I reached out to the Department of Cultural Affairs because they have like an open application every year. And so now I've been funded by the City of Los Angeles for 5 years.
Wow.
To present my program to Panorama City, which is in District 6, and I work over there every summer. I have my program. I'm hosted by Casa Esperanza, which is a nonprofit organization. And this year, I've taken a leap to change my program into a nonprofit, and so, or 501c3. And so it's active now. I'm still finishing up some of the final details, but it's called the Michael's Daughter Foundation. And so, you know, my mission really is to help to secure funds for scholarships for young people that have parents and loved ones that are incarcerated. Also want to continue to provide arts-based programs that inspire them, that give them self-confidence, and just give them healthy alternatives than, you know, falling into the same, you know, path as, you know, their loved ones or their parents. And so, so that's what I'm doing. I'm also, with that nonprofit, I want to create a mentorship program where, you know, other people, you know, can come in and mentor, you know, the youth. So, so yeah, it's all baby steps right now, and it's happening, and it's big and scary, but, you know, I feel like it's just all in alignment with what I'm doing and why I became an artist in the first place, and yeah. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you're not busy with that or the foundation or obviously your craft, when you do get, I guess, the little free time that you get, do you have any hobbies, or what do you like to do?
I mean, I try like every day. I love moving, I love dancing, so like I'll play some music and dance like a crazy person in my apartment because I just feel like that is so important to just like let loose and just find like daily joy. I do, I like taking long walks in the park, but I do, like, I have to get outside and like just, you know, get some sun rays and stuff. I love going to the beach whenever I could find time to do that. And then like I just naturally, like, I just like being curious about things. Like, I got a guitar last week, so I'm gonna like start teaching myself how to play guitar. I like reading and just exploring different things, and so I'm trying to like really get into learning Spanish too, and you know, that type of stuff. So I don't have like one set thing. I mean, for a while, like I was going to the gun range a lot. I know that's like really taboo to say, but I was like, I'm an actor. I need to learn how to shoot guns. Sure. And so like, you know, I was doing that for a while. That's a lot of fun. And then took up archery. And so I just, you know, I just like doing different stuff, you know, and as long as like it sounds fun to me and like I'm not gonna die, then I'm like, all right, like I'm going to explore and try that. So, but not drugs. So
yeah,
know.
We try to stay away.
No.
That.
So yeah.
And what advice do you have for anyone trying to break into the industry?
I would say for anybody trying to break into the industry is, like, I keep talking about curiosity. Like, of course, like, your curiosity has like led you to it, but with curiosity, just get educated on it. Like, you know, and if that means like getting a Hollywood reporter, reading on what the industry is, reading what it's about, the good, the bad, you know, the ugly of it, just be educated on it as much as you can. Try to elect a mentor if you can, you know, somebody that can just give you some guidance and their life experiences. And also, like, remain humble, because I feel like so many young people, since we're so used to like instant gratification, and we kind of look at people like, oh, well, you know, they didn't have talent, or they have very little talent, or they were able to do this, like, then why can't I do it? Yeah, like, of course, sky's the limit, but, you know, we don't see the struggle, we don't see the hard work that other people have put into it. And so, you know, humble yourself to know that, like, you know, some of these people started out as like PAs, or some of these people started out as whatever, like the lowest of the lowest on the totem pole, to now be whoever they are. And so, you know, I hear young people being like, you know, saying that they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't want to be an assistant. They wouldn't want to do this. They want it, and it's like, no, do it. Like, humble yourself, and you will learn so much more from being in that position than you would from skyrocketing to Oprah's position. So it's like, just know that. And so just in anything you do, I'd say just have gratitude. Like, just be grateful for the accomplishments that you have had, celebrate them, and be grateful for the down moments too, because that's going to come. I mean, that was one of the greatest pieces of advice that I had coming in, is one of my mentors told me, like, have a vehicle of something that you are passionate about, just as equally as acting, because there are going to be moments where you probably won't work for 9 months to a year or even longer, and it can consume you. It could tear you apart, and I've had those moments, and that's why Michael's Daughter was born out of it. That's why I teach and I work with young people, because those are the other things that I'm passionate about. So therefore, when I don't book the part, the life-changing role, or the role that's paying X amount of, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever, it's not going to consume me. So, as people wanting to break in, don't let performing be your purpose. Find your purpose in other areas of your life. So.
Amazing advice. Amazing.
Thank you.
So, for people who do want to, keep up with what you're doing or get in touch with you, how can they find this information? Or how can they reach you? Social media, all that? Social media, I'm pretty much active on it. So you could go to @Ciera Payton on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook as well. And I have my website, www.cierapayton.com. And if you want to know more about the Michael's Daughter Project, you go to www.michaelsdaughter.org. There you have it. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us out of your busy schedule. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing, so I'm just glad to be a part of it, and hope to just help and shed some light on it. So there we go. All right.